Welcome back to another video. Often I am asked by my viewers, especially my longtime viewers, it's like, Darren, I get it, there's tons to learn, but just tell me, what would you do? Or what would you use? Or how do you use it? They don't want to know all the minutia, they don't want to know all the details, they just want a simple answer. Darren, just tell me what to do. So often I'm asked is this, Darren, there's so many ways I can wash my car. I want to know how you wash your car. So I thought that would be the video of the day, is how does Darren wash his car? Because ironically, or coincidentally, might be the more appropriate word, is I just shot a video with Sean of Blue Tech Mobile Detailing, which is behind the camera today. So thank you, Sean, for joining in. We're shooting a video because I released a video recently about waterless washing and making a product, a homemade waterless wash product made out of the Q7, or I should say the CSI Q7 wax. In fact, I'll dedicate this video to James, is it James O'Brien? Yes. So this one goes out to you, James O'Brien, which, by the way, just in case there's any confusion, I welcome your feedback. I welcome your comments on my page. So I appreciate that. So I will tell you, I appreciate your comments. So we were having a debate on waterless washing because there's now this area has become very complex between waterless washing, no rinse, quick detailers, spray waxes, straight water. There's many ways because you have the actual products, which is a noun, a tangible product, a waterless wash product. That's the noun. But then you have the technique of removing the dirt from your car in a type of method, whether it's a no rinse, a waterless type of method, which is a verb, an action word. So that's where the confusion sometimes can lie, is defining and refining your terms in which you're talking about. So with that said, that long introduction, I'm going to actually show, because I told James that I actually employed the use of all three methods: traditional water and bucket method, a rinseless method or a no rinse method, as well as a waterless method. So if you really wanted to dig in and deliberate on the nuances of that, that's where we would have to clarify the terminology. But with that said, I want to just show you how I wash my car. So I've got my car. I'm going to start with the wheels. I've got these comprehensive videos on how to detail wheels. That's not what this is about. So I'm going to stop momentarily in frames to explain certain parts of the process. But I'm going to speed up the process so that you guys can just watch it and learn little nuggets of information along the way. So with that said, let's get started. Before I get started, I need to ask a little fundamental baseline understanding, which is my car is garage kept. It's not what you would call a true daily driver, even though it does get driven daily. It's just very limited use. It only spends approximately 2 to 3 hours exposed to the elements, and most of the time it's just when I go to the gym is when I drive it. So officially it's a daily driver, but not in the true context of what most of you might think is a daily driver. The point being is I never allow my car to get overly dirty. I will do this method at a minimum at least once a week, and occasionally I will even touch it up during the week, even though it's a white car and it looks clean virtually all the time anyways. But it's a foreign car, BMW, so it throws a lot of brake dust, and I hate dirty wheels. So that's part of the reason I do it as frequently as I do. So that's the context, is that it's not an overly dirty car. So this is where you need to apply some common sense, as they'll call it, logic, critical thinking skills, that it's not a muddy off-road vehicle with tons of grime and dirt and mud attached to it where I'm using these methods. So with that said, everything is maintained on a regular, consistent basis. I'm a big fan of that because it requires less chemicals, less effort, and less damage in the process of keeping it in showroom condition. So let me get started, and what I do is I start with the wheels first. No special reason other than that's the dirtiest part of the equation, and that's where I start. Okay, let me show you my tools for cleaning the wheel. I've got my chemical sprayer. You can find this on my website. I've pressurized it. My chemical of choice today is Simple Green, the crystal. It's diluted down 4:1. That's what I use for the wheels as well as the tire sidewall and the wheel wells. I like this sprayer because it allows me to get inside the wheel barrels. It dispenses large volumes of cleaner very easily. This is a round object called a wheel and a tire. And what's so tricky about that is that it moves, which means that what I'm observing at this angle is going to be different once this wheel moves. That means I have to pay special attention and make sure I get the cleaner up underneath here because I can't really see it. I just know that it's dirty like the rest of the wheel is. I take my tire sidewall brush because I want to remove the old spent tire dressing in the process of cleaning it. Now, because I keep these wheels in my car so clean overall, I don't even have to use a pressure washer in order to blast this dirt away. This product is effective enough where I can simply spray it and rinse it, and my wheel is 99% clean. What I'm gonna do now is blow it, and then I'll show you, well, I'll just show you. Okay, now I bust out my blower. I love a leaf blower because it's instant compressed air. All I need is electricity and extension cord. I like the wand because it means I can just sit here and wave it around. My goal with that is to remove 95% of the standing water. I don't like drips, but what I'm going to do is bust out my CSI Q7 detailer. I'm going to give it 3 little spritzes. I'm going to take my microfiber cloth. This is a clean one despite the staining that's on it. I'm going to drape it around my vent brush so that it collapses over the tip, so that as I push this into the wheel barrels, it automatically remains in the position I want it to be, which means it's not wadding up or balling up on me. And that's the part where you'll just have to learn if you decide to use these methods yourself and figuring out the proper way to finesse it. Now, because I'm working in direct sunlight, but it's not overly hot today, that's where you have to learn how to manage your products. So my rule is that, and I'm going in reverse because I just broke my own rule, which is I'm going to address the areas that are in direct sunlight first so that they do not dry before I have a chance to manhandle them. So I would actually do these spokes first, wipe them, and there's very little dirt actually coming off on the cloth, and that just shows you how effective the cleaner is and how effective it is just to simply maintain your stuff rather than let it get overly dirty and then try to remove excessive buildup of dirt, dust, mud, whatever, based on your region of the world, your corner of the universe. And I know not everyone has time to do this. Actually, I don't either. Only reason I'm doing it right now, because it's essentially already clean, is to shoot a video. So that's how I clean my wheel. I'm gonna dress the tires after I finish everything else. Now we're gonna get to the fun stuff. So I've got my bucket. This is where I say that I incorporate all 3 different types of methods. Traditional water and bucket method, no rinse method, and waterless method. So let me explain. Here's part of my traditional method. I have a bucket. Yes, there's a form of a grit guard in the bottom, which I would take out and show you. It's Chemical Guy's version. It's black. Now this is my go-to wash mitt. It's what's called a chenille wash mitt. I like it because it's got all these fingers made out of microfiber, and to me it is the safest wash mitt that I have found personally, and it's my go-to wash mitt. Here I have my distilled water that I pour into it. Now I'm not going to add any traditional wash soap to my water. This is the traditional part, is just right here. I actually do use some water. I take my wash mitt in my clean water and I wring it out, but not so tightly that there's still not a little bit of water, but it's not dripping wet. Next I have I think this is like a 700 GSM microfiber cloth. It's got a rib around it. which that's debatable, that's not critical, and I've got my Q7 detailer. So this is where I go into a no rinse or waterless washing type of process, which I introduce water in the form of this, but I pre-spray the panel with the detailer. Now this detailer is a water-based formulation and it goes a long way, and that acts as a lubricant. So for you, James, specifically, this would be my solution for encapsulating the dirt. Then not simultaneously, but then I follow up immediately with my clean microfiber cloth. Now as a rule, I'm going to dissect this car in half. So anything below the halfway mark, I consider the rocker panels. That's where the real dirty, gritty stuff will accumulate. So I'm going to wash the top half first and then circle around and get the bottom half lastly. So I just dip this in the water, the distilled water. The reason I use distilled water is that if it were to inadvertently dry on my car, water spotting is not going to be an issue. It will instantly clean up because there is no dissolved solids in that water. It's as pure as it gets. I like the quick detailer because that serves as my lubricant that I spray on the panel first before I wipe to help lubricate the dirt particles, the dust particles, before I actually wipe it down. Now, as a side note, if this was especially dirty, and that's relative to my world, I would actually blow this car off first before I even touch it with a leaf blower, so that it actually will blow off maybe 20% of the dirt initially. But because I just did this a couple days ago, it really isn't that dirty, and I just wanted to show you guys exactly what Darren would do. And this is it. What would Darren do? So I typically will drape this over my shoulder. That's one technique. It's up to you as to whatever technique you want to use. I spray the section I want to do, wipe it, bust this down, wipe the panel off. As a rule, I keep what's called a wet side and a dry side. So once I've done the wet initial side, I flip it over to the dry side and I buff it the rest of the way. If there's any like streaking or unwanted visual indicators that I can kind of finesse to perfection. On a white car, that really becomes trivial because it in many ways just always looks clean, which is the good news of a white car. So I'm going to show you, time lapse this for the rest of the video and just show you how I attack it section by section, because what I'm trying to do is manage the water, manage the quick detailer, manage the sun, the temperature of the paint. So there's a few things that you have to juggle simultaneously in your head in working through this process. When I do the windows, I don't spray the quick detailer directly onto the windows. I'm just going to simply accept that whatever residuals on the cloth is what I'm going to use on the window part, but I'm going to come around anyways and finesse the windows at the very end. At this point, the car is clean, my wheels, tires, it's all clean. What I want to do is go back, double check the paint work, finesse any areas that I see visually that are a problem, which so far I haven't. And I'm going to finesse the windows. I'm also going to apply my choice in a tire dressing. It's a water-based formulation. It's CSI New Tire Lotion. I love it because it is true waterborne technology. And what that means to you and myself is this, that water, purified water, is the carrier of the active ingredients. So when I apply it to the sidewall of the tire, that water evaporates and it leaves just the active ingredients or the critical ingredients left on the tire. It dries to the touch. It produces zero sling whatsoever. And trust me, if there was any sling, it would show up on this white car, and I never see any. So that's why I use it, and I want to be able to clean it off each time before I reapply a new fresh coat. So I'm going to finesse the windows, and how I do that is I take a separate microfiber cloth, my distilled water. I have a video where I actually use the Q7 detailer to clean windows, but because windows, they're dark, they're tinted, they show certain things that the paint will not reveal. So I'm going to finesse the window, specifically the front windshield, because of a safety issue. I want to make sure that that front windshield is flawless. So I sprayed the distilled water on the one side, which I call my wet side of the cloth. So I spray my one side of the cloth like this with the distilled water, my wet side, my dry side, and I continue to finesse the windows. Like I said, specifically the front windshield. And you might notice, if you're a intent viewer, that I am ambidextrous when it comes to cars. The reason is because I've been at this so long that I have tendonitis in my elbows that will flare up, and so I've had to be able to switch arms and be able to use both arms, hands, and finesse my dexterity in both sides of my hands and arms, which becomes useful if you start getting injuries that become chronic, like me. Both my elbows, well, my one elbow, my right arm, I blew out my bicep, and I was in a cast, and I was in a limited range motion type of device for a pretty long time, so that forced me to also do it. But I've also had chronic tendonitis in both arms, inner and outer, which has forced me, based on the type of rubbing I got to do, it will aggravate that tendonitis. So I've learned how to do a lot of things with both sides of my body. What I'm doing right now is, we get, in this area of the region, we get a water soluble type of tree sap that, unless you introduce enough water to it, it doesn't want to break down. And so I see that there's still a little residual left on this back windshield, and so I'm just using my distilled water to remove it and finesse this back window to perfection. And this is where you have to manage your world based on temperature, humidity, direct sunlight, shaded surface, and this is where you remain largely in control, even though you can't control the environment all the time, is how much product do you use, how much pressure, how many times do you have to wipe, your type of cloth. There is a lot of moving parts, and that's where a lot of the frustration comes in, is because guys, to come full circle, is like, Darren, just what would you do? Hence the nature of this video. This is what I do. But with that said, is I still have to apply that same critical thinking to my own world in managing my own world: temperature, direct sunlight, glass, paint, carbon fiber, plastic. Just go down the list of the endless materials. Okay, I've finessed the windows. Now it's time to dress the tires. This currently is my go-to tire sponge or applicator sponge that I'm testing out. It actually comes in one piece. I've cut it in half because the sidewall of my tire is so, hey Nestor, is so low profile. In fact, just to call it out, because some of you will know, this is a 20-inch wheel, 20 inches from there to there, a ZR rated. 265 is the width, which is in metric, and 30, it's a 30 series tire, which means that's an aspect ratio, which means, or what it's supposed to mean, is that the sidewall is 30% of whatever that width is. So the greater or shorter or narrower the width is, that 30% will be different. That's a little sidebar. So my new tire lotion, my applicator, it's contoured very nicely to fit, very exact and precisely to the sidewall of my tire. Plus I catch this little edge here because this tire, it is a Michelin, what is it, a Super Sport? Pilot Super Sport. It's got a little lip on it, which is cool. Not that I have a problem with curb shots, but a lot of people do. So there's a little bit of a bumper here in the form of a rubber tire before you actually nail your wheel against a curb. So I use that little lip there to precisely finesse and apply some tire dressing right in there. Now for my tires, because it's a really performance compound as far as the rubber goes, I only need one application of this. What you need to know, that's in my other videos, is that the composition of the rubber itself will be as big of a determinant as to the shine it produces, the results it produces, just as much as the choice of tire dressing. So you can pick the best tire dressing, the most expensive tire dressing, put it on a cheap, like off-road tire that's meant to be durable. It's not about aesthetics or anything else, and it's just not gonna perform. On this tire, I love the performance of this. Great shine, great durability, cleans up nicely each time when I want it to. Zero sling. And once again, if you want to grab yourself some of this stuff, test it out, always check the links below. I'm gonna finish the other side. You don't need to witness that. With that said, leave any comments, because I've been asked over the years, almost since the beginning of my YouTube channel, people say, Darren, I know you don't wash your cars in the traditional way. Well, these are my cars that sit in the garage and are limited use. So I never really allow them to get that dirty. So that's the context. So don't make a comment that's inappropriate. And what I mean by inappropriate is more like unrealistic, is then I'm not gonna take a car, drive it off-road, get like 3 inches of mud on it, and expect to use this process to clean it, because that would just be, well, silly. So with that said, leave me the comments below. I've just revealed how I do it. Now you know what would Darren do. Until next time, we'll see you on the next video.